listeners. I'm sorry I'm a little under the weather today. I had a bit of food poisoning here in Southeast Asia, but I will pressure on through. So just bear with me a little bit. So the news, it seems like every single show we start out talking about Donald Trump, and this will be no exception because I tell you, I wrote an op-ed that was published in Taiwan, where I am, and it talks about what America got out of the ceasefire. Now, let's just be practical. No matter how I feel about Donald Trump, the reality is the President of the United States once said we destroyed Iran's nuclear capability. He once said I want an unconditional surrender. He once said that he wanted regime change. I mean, he said all these things, but now he's negotiating. And I don't know what's going on. As an American, I think it's incumbent upon the President of the United States to explain the philosophy, explain the strategy. And last week on my show when I had a GK Oakball, we talked about, I am a strong believer in a regime change in Iran, and I believe that if you're in it to win it. But what's happening is that America is getting nothing out of what's happening now. We held these peace talks. Nothing came out of it. Now Trump is talking about going back in and annihilating a whole civilization, but at the end of the day, what's happening is that if we put Iran aside for a second, what my op-ed talks about is how it sends a clear message to places like China and places like Russia and other rogue actors around the world that say, okay, all we have to do is wait out the president. He's not a guy who's going to commit and see it through the end. Venezuela may be an exception. Well, that's because they paid the vice president $20 million to sell out the president and to take over. I mean, Venezuela is not China, Russia, North Korea, Iran. So it's definitely not a model that can be used anywhere else in the world. But I'm very afraid, that America, we do have the military might, we have the capability, we do have the ability to defend democracy and freedom, but we're not. We're not defending Taiwan. We have made it very clear we're not going to defend the Philippines. We're not doing anything to protect Russia. Now, this whole, what I consider a myth of Christian genocide in the country in Nigeria, where, Trump says we're going to, what's happened? There's been one military strike. There's now some discussions happening between the governments. But at the same time, nothing's ever followed through. There's no follow through on anything. It's all about intimidation. And it's a very frustrating thing. It's something that the world is learning to adapt and accept. And it's working to the bad guys, all the bad governments around the world. It's helping them because all they know is that they just have to wait out, because President Trump is so fickle. He just doesn't commit and doesn't continue. So anyway, let's see how it happens. But all of this also boils down to about politicians lying. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in the U.S. now about Trump. I mean, he posted this crazy graphic because now he's fighting with the Pope. He fights with everybody. He's fighting the Pope, and he posted a graphic of him being Jesus Christ, world. No black people in the picture at all, just him anointing people, saving the world. To me, I just find it disgusting, absolutely disgusting what's going on. And it's about lies. But sadly, there are people in the United States who believe it, and not only believe it, but continue to spread the word, and so does the media. So anyway, so let's get to our first guest. I was honored to record earlier a conversation with Peter Charley. He just wrote a new book called The Truth Illusion. So let's hear from Peter. Let's first take a quick break, and then we'll be back to hear the interview with Peter Charley. Thank you very much.
I'll break it down to a couple of Nigeria, Lagos has become one of the largest exporters of Egyptian ivory in the world.
Live in a third world nation where your votes will get stolen if you can vote there at all.
The world is full of stories, some hidden, some waiting to be told.
Do you think that the choice of this American as Pope had anything to do with Trump?
I think we have a tendency to want everything to have something to do with Trump today.
Real voices.
So do you see there ever being a Palestinian state? Yes or no?
I am not jumping up and down because of what Canada, UK, and Australia have done, because these are chicken countries when it comes to military might.
Real people.
Overpopulation will kill you, and the rise in the sea level will kill you. So you choose. I think it's time to choose how you're going to die anyway.
The fact that U.S. foreign policy has done some things that frankly, I'm not proud of in Iran.
Each sharing what connects us all.
There is no life for women, and education closed and banned for all women in Afghanistan.
From London to Lagos, from Prague to Taipei, Around the World with Dane Waters brings together thinkers, dreamers, and doers. Conversations that cross borders, stories that bridge divides. Heard in over 60 countries, these stories travel farther than borders, inspiring hearts, sparking ideas, and reminding us how connected the world truly is. Don't miss Around the World with Dane Waters.
Has become one of the largest exporters of Pacific ivory in the world.
Live in a third world nation where your votes will get stolen if you can vote there at all.
Welcome back to Around the World with Dane Waters. I won't belabor this any more than I need to, so let's just cut to the interview with Peter Charley that I had earlier, and let's talk about truth illusion and the lies of American presidents and if it's impacting the world. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy. Welcome to Around the World with Dane Waters. I'm your host, Dane Waters, and I am very honored, as always, to have Peter Charley with me. Peter was here once before with his infinite wisdom, and he's gracing us again. So how you doing, Peter?
I'm very well, Dane. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, hanging in there in this crazy, crazy world. And, the last time we spoke, you had a book that you were working on, but now your book is out there in the world. So let's just start. Let's start with the basics. What is the name of the book? Where can we get it? And tell us about it.
I've called it The Truth Illusion, How America's Addiction to Lies Are Eating the Nation Alive. It's basically about why is it that we are bombarded with so many lies and what effect it's having on us. It's causing a great deal of confusion. You can get it on Amazon or any number of other outlets around the world.
Lies. Okay, we talked about this before. Politicians are prone to lying. It's just, sadly, I like to think that I only work with candidates that tell the truth, but maybe I'm living in my own little fantasy world. But lies. I mean, if somebody made the statement that says, well, I don't know how to put this. There's one statement that the one theory is always like one person's terrorist is another person's fighter for liberty and freedom, or whatever the saying goes. But could you argue that one person's lies is actually the truth to some people, or do you think they know these lies you're talking about? Do you think they know their lies, or is stuff that they actually believe?
Well, it's a good question, and I go into this to some extent in the book. There was a famous quote at the very beginning of Trump's first term by Sean Spicer in his first press conference, where he declared to the media that there were more people at Trump's inauguration than at Obama's inauguration. And that was obviously untrue. The photograph showed it, showed that there were more people at Obama's inauguration. And yet some people tested that theory by conducting a survey to determine whether people really believed that. They were shown photographs of Obama's inauguration and photographs of Trump's inauguration. Bizarrely, 15% of the people who were shown those photographs said there were more people at Trump's inauguration than at Obama's, even though the photographs clearly showed the opposite. Now, did those people believe that to be true, or were they just lying because they thought they had to lie to toe the line? That's a question that's difficult to answer, but I think many people understand that so many lies are spewing forth from the Trump administration, and if they choose to support that administration, I think there's an obligation on their part to repeat those lies and to support those lies, even though deep inside they may know that what they're saying is not true.
I agree with that. I've had guests on this show, and I have a lot of friends who espouse that vitriol from Trump all the time, and it's because I think a lot of it has to do with that they want to be close to power, and if in order to stay close to power, you have to abuse those lies, but let me just ask you this point blank question: do you think Donald Trump is a liar?
Oh, of course he is. He's told so many lies, we've lost track of them. He lies all the time, several times a day. I mean, it's not to say that other politicians don't lie, but Trump is, remarkable in that the the number of lies that spew forth from that man are absolutely extraordinary. And, I mean, I think, probably set a record, a world record. He's fond of setting world records. But the world record in lying, I think, would have to be right up there. I mean, the man just tells lies over and over again.
Well, yeah, and I agree with you. And I think it's important also to point out something you said, that all politicians lie. It's not just the Republicans, it's not Democrats or Green or Labor or Conservative. I mean, it's unfortunate that in order to get in power or to retain power, people tell lies, and that's just the unfortunate. I mean, it's unfortunate, but that is the reality of it. So, but let's go back to Donald Trump. I mean, the relevance of what's going on now is, as we all see, what's happening in Iran. I mean, I mean, I have to tell you, first, he didn't really sell. I don't even know what his story was anymore about why we even went to war with Iran. I just honestly, I don't know. I mean, I've always, I mean, to be very clear, I've made it very clear that regime change is, I'm not opposed to regime change in Iran, but the reality is that I don't even know why we went to war. And it seems like every day he tells another lie as to why. And, and we just had the peace negotiations, if you want to call them that, in Pakistan between Iran and the United States. First, let me get your take on that. I mean, how do you think that came out?
Well, look, I think America's in a hell of a position now. I agree with you. It was very difficult to get a sense of why the war began. And of course, lies were told about, no, we didn't begin the war, we're just finishing the war. Clearly, America started this war with Israel. It was never clearly articulated why we had to go, or America had to go to war. There are a number of sort of shifting reasons, centered around, nuclear weapons. Like you, I'm not opposed to regime change in Iran. I think what's gone on in Iran has been appalling, the way Iran has treated its people. And I think the world would be a better place with a different regime in place there. But having said that, I think what America has done, or what Trump has done, is, without thinking it through clearly, has allowed Iran to understand that it holds an enormous lever of power in the Strait of Hormuz, being able to restrict traffic through that strait. And, it's become clear to Iran and to the world that they are very much in charge of the way things are going here. And, I think it's a mess. It's a terrible mess. And I really don't know how the US is going to get out of it.
Well, I don't either. I mean, I don't either. I think the era of greater. I mean, I think Iran is not finished. I think, honestly, that what's happening now is that no matter what happens in the near future, Iran is the victor. I mean, they've withstood the great Satan, as they like to say, and I'm worried because they're more powerful than ever. And I mean, I can somewhat. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I can somewhat understand. Israel. And I wrote an op-ed about this. Israel's a regional player. I know the world doesn't like to hear that Israel's a regional player, but they're a regional player, really. And and they want to protect themselves against Hezbollah and Iran, people who don't believe that they have the right to exist. Okay, so be it. Fight it out. Do whatever. But part of me thinks that Trump, got involved because of FOMO, fear of missing out. Didn't want to miss out on being part of this great war, which is a sad reason to even conduct any foreign policy. But to go back to the lies part of it, I mean, okay, let's say politicians lie, and they do. We recognize that. But do you think the media is complicit in it because they actually broadcast those lies? If you're sitting alone in your room and you lie, no one's going to know it. But you have, those lies become dangerous because they get broadcasted out, and every media outlet broadcasts those lies. I mean, do you think they're complicit in what's happening?
Yeah, they are very much complicit in it. And of course, the media is so fragmented now, and the media landscape is changing so rapidly, with social media now playing such a vital role in getting information out there. And the accelerating factor of the algorithms employed by social media just have sort of hypercharged the whole lying thing. I mean, people are now sort of more polarized than ever, I think. They're sort of embedded in their particular camps, which are becoming more and more isolated, with social media promulgating, very, strong positions one way or the other. So yeah, the media is, is spreading lies. The media often will take one side or the other, and it will, continue to repeat the lies that their side puts forward. The result, of course, is that people are perhaps further than ever away from ever being able to agree on anything. And people are becoming more and more confused about what is real and what's not. They just don't really, there's a separation from reality, I think, now that's really affecting the US and the world. That's very troubling because people are just unsure as to what they're seeing and hearing is really true.
Yeah, and I think there's also another component. I don't know what you have people are lying, they're being confronted with these lies. And I think there is a segment of our population globally that is just deciding to truly stick their head in the sand and not listen to anything. Now, the downside to that is that you can't bring about any change if people have their heads stuck in the sand. I mean, would you agree that that was true?
Oh, absolutely. And, I'm seeing this myself. Even members of my own family have said to me, I can't hear the news anymore. I can't take it. It's too depressing. It's too disturbing. I just don't want to watch TV or look at social media. And I think, that's indicative of a position that others are taking that, it's just all too much and too crazy. It's just easier just to sort of block it out and look at cat videos or something. It's a world deeply divided with increasing heaps of anger being stirred into the mix. And as I say, it's being, hypercharged by social media, which is, sort of putting ever more sort of elaborate and extreme points of view out there.
Yeah, and I would also argue that the social media, what's happening is we can't forget AI. I mean, people are now using AI to the point where, I mean, I've actually stopped looking at some of these Facebook reels and stuff because you don't know what's real and you don't know what's not real or what's truthful, because you can create anything with AI. And even somebody like me, a simpleton, can go on AI and create some video about something and just imagine what the experts can do with it. So I agree with you, but this is one thing I want to urge the audience. If you turn off and you ignore and you don't push back, then guess what's going to happen? The bad people are going to rule the world, right?
Mm. Yeah, well, it sort of begs the question, what's going to happen in the US midterms? Are people going to be engaged and angry, or are they just going to be resigned to a sense that there's no point voting? I mean, it's going to be interesting. I'd be interested in your take on that, from your political standpoint.
Well, I do think that the midterms, I mean, in theory, the Democrats should do well in the midterms, but it is not, honestly, it's not going to change much. You still have a Senate that's controlled by the Republicans. And I'm afraid that if the Democrats do win and take over the House, that they're going to do, I don't say crazy things, but they're going to do more like possibly trying to impeach the president again and do things like that, which I can argue that he probably is impeachable, but all that's going to do is turn off the voters even more. I think it's more tricks. And it's just going to possibly set up, my bigger concern is what happens to the presidency. I'm a lifelong Republican, but at the same time, Donald Trump and his cohorts and his people around him need to go. There's no doubt about that. So I am concerned about it. But I do think that there's a hardcore group of people who are going to come out and vote and going to ensure that the Democrats win. But what is the answer to all this? I mean, we're heading down a bad path globally and in America specifically. What is your suggested solution to this?
Well, I think we need to be more mindful of critical thinking. And I mean, you mentioned the problems with AI. This is something that's affecting all of us, of course. I mean, how do we know what's appearing on social media or wherever is AI or true? I think media literacy is becoming a more important tool than ever before. We need to be able to determine what's fake and what's not. And I think until we can sort of get a handle on that sort of thing, we're just not going to know what's true. That's just to be unmoored from the truth, particularly at such a fractious and dangerous time historically, is going to be, just adding fuel to the fire. I think we need to be able to get a handle on AI, to be able to think clearly and critically about, what is the truth, and try to just be stabilize things in that regard.
It's crazy, after the ceasefire came about, you had the Iranians were saying what their 10-point plan was, and that the Americans had agreed to allow them to continue their nuclear program, and the Americans had agreed to take off their the sanctions, and then you had Trump out there saying they're lies, they're lies, they're lies. I mean, that's the pot calling the kettle black if there ever was one. No doubt about it. But let me ask you this: who has the ultimate responsibility in your mind of ferreting out what is a lie and what isn't in our society? Is it the press? Is it the elected officials? Is it the parents? Who is it?
Well, I think it's all of those. But I mean, the media, those who sending news out to the people, have a very, very strong responsibility to determine that what they're sending out is true or not. But of course, what we're seeing is, a lot of these people are just repeating lies. I think the media should be filtering out, fake videos and that sort of thing. And there should be a stronger effort put towards flagging what is determined to be untrue. There should be more controls on social media, I believe, where, fake videos that are going through should be flagged as fake videos. I think that sort of thing would help. I mean, in the war in Iran, we're seeing videos coming from both sides. Iran sending videos of US soldiers being captured. That's fake. The US is putting out fake videos. I mean, we need help figuring out what's fake and what's not fake. And, I think that is where we need to go to get out of this mess.
No, I know. And then, then you have the situation where, once again, what's fake and what's not fake. I mean, the reality is that in the press, we were talking about the media. I mean, media is profit-driven. I mean, that's just the reality. Okay. So that's why you have Fox News really ensuring that they're catering to the base of MAGA and Trump because that's their profit. CNN, I think, is a little bit more balanced, but still they have a certain base. And you have the Washington Post, New York Times. I mean, all pandering, I hate to say it, I respect these organizations, but they're all pandering to a certain base because it's a profit-driven thing. And I can't imagine Fox ever coming out and calling Trump a liar or saying he's full of shit. Excuse my language. I'm going to be censored now. But that's the problem is that, in looking at the media, I mean, I try to look at multiple media outlets every day, and it's just crazy how you read, what one media outlet says is happening and another media, both reputable, and there's like night and day as far as what the reality is. So I don't know. And this is where people like you are very important, Peter, because I think that when you write, I mean, you have no dog in the hunt, really. You don't. You're writing the truth, and I think we need more journalists and global analysts like you and authors like you to share the truth. But so let me ask this: so you're a Middle East guy. You understand what's going on there. I mean, what happens next? I mean, where is the world going? First, let's talk about just the war in Iran, and then globally, what's going to happen?
Well, it's hard to tell what's going to happen next with the war in Iran. I mean, Iran obviously has this wonderfully potent power at hand with the Strait of Hormuz. And I can't see it giving that up. I think, what's happened there is an awful mess, and it's going to be very difficult to back out of it. So whether fighting resumes, let's hope it doesn't, of course, but whether it resumes or not is unclear at this stage. And I think a lot will depend on, how the Trump administration reacts to the failed peace talks in Pakistan. Globally, I think we're entering a phase where America's, what was once seen as America's sort of potent stance of, in spite of all its failings and, certain streams of hypocrisy that have flowed from the US. I think America used to be seen as sort of moral guardian of the world. And, there have been failings. Let me say that clearly. There have been many failings. nonetheless, I think the US, has been a leader in so many ways of sort of enlightened thinking and acceptance. That's changed so radically now under the Trump administration. And I think a new world order is emerging where, US allies who are now disconcerted by what Trump is saying and doing are looking for new ways to reconnect with each other and to redesign a new world order. And I think, whether we can ever go back to the way it was is very questionable. I think we've probably stepped so far into a new, dangerous new world that retreating to what once existed before is probably an impossibility. So there is going to be a redesign of the way things work and the way allies interact and the way trade progresses and new alliances will emerge. We're in the midst of significant change.
Well, I agree about that. That the so-called axis of evil that we always talked about. I mean, listen, when you have China and Russia helping Iran in the war, helping them target American soldiers. I mean, so if you what's interesting is you're right. There's a new world order. You got. I mean, I look at it good versus evil. I mean, simplistic as that. Not that everyone in the West is good by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm talking about. I don't like authoritarianism. I like freedom, not necessarily democracy per se. I just like freedom. People should have the right to self-determination, right? So, in the countries that believe in the right to self-determination, they're all over the map. The UK, Starmer's saying he's tired of Trump. America's doing their own thing. Europe is not helping Ukraine. South America is doing their own thing. I mean, none of the good guys are together. Yet the bad guys, the evil, Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. I mean, they're working in sync, hand to hand. And this is where they're more powerful than ever because they are working in sync together. And I think that the world that we grew up in, that we believed in the fighting for freedom and the right to freedom, I don't see any coordination anywhere, any support anywhere, and it's very sad. So I don't know. In your book, are there any positive, happy notes in your book?
Well, yes, I think. I think humanity has it within itself to recorrect. And I think what I point out in the book is how we've become so utterly confused and the world has become so muddled because there have been so many lies accelerating at such a pace. And, as I say, it's not as if lies coming from politicians are new. In fact, 400 years ago, Descartes was talking about how, we can be deceived so easily. We need to be critically thinking to avoid those sort of deceptions. For hundreds of years, people have lied and deceived. But just the pace of it now, the accelerated pace of it, is so disturbing that, we are at a critical point. But I do believe we have the ability to change. I do believe if we can work together to find ways to shield ourselves from what Trump might call fake news, but certainly fake or false information that deceives and confuses us. I do believe there will be a way to get through it.
Maybe we should coin the term fake reality, which is Trump's reality, the fake reality, alternative reality. But I agree. I think that you're right. The world is heading in a bad place, but it all boils down to accountability. I mean, and those people will lie. Bad people will do bad things as long as there's no accountability. And I'm a firm believer that the only people who can bring accountability to those are the people. And whether, in your book, you also talk about corporations lying, not just politicians, but corporations lying. And unless there's accountability, they're going to continue lying. It's like a child. If a child does something bad and they're not punished for it, they're going to do it again and again and again and again. And that's what's happening in our society, especially in America. And it's very sad. But listen, your book, The Truth Illusion, How America's Addiction, Continue the Scent to How America's Addiction, I can't even talk. Tell us the title again.
The Truth Illusion: How America's Addiction to Lies is Eating the Nation Alive.
I agree with that. Well, Peter, listen, thanks for being on the show. It's always a great pleasure, and the timing of your book couldn't have been better. I mean, it's just so relevant to today's times, and I don't see it getting any better anytime soon. But keep speaking the truth, Peter. I really appreciate it. Okay.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Well, thanks for being with me around the world with Dane Waters. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back with our next guest. Thank you very much.